What's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to go through round 5 highlights from Tata Steel. 7 games, 4 wins, 3 draws. We got some decisive highlights. So without further ado, let's get into these highlights. Like and subscribe, and let's start with game number 1. Alright, so here we have Erdogmus versus Sindarov. It starts out in Italian, kind of a normal Italian too. And they start off pretty simple. The first transition is here, when we get these 4 pawns in the middle. Black breaks the tension with take. We transition to an IQP. So we have just a normal IQP, bishop and knight versus 2 knights. Bishop wants to keep the position open, but playing against the IQP with so little pieces, I would definitely give advantage to white here. Okay, and black is trying to target this b2 pawn, which is going to become foreshadowing for later. So we're just maneuvering, we're just making moves, nothing crazy here. Trying to move forward, you do see all of white's pieces slowly inching forward. And then I would say first kind of next transition here is c3. So c3 is quote-unquote sacking this pawn. I guess if he doesn't take it, I'm just going to go rook d2, knight d4, and I get everything. That's, I think, the idea. So he takes here, and the counterplay is knight g5 and rook takes d5. We can't take here because we got mate back here. Rook c8. And then we kind of keep back to maneuvering. It's easier for white to play because this knight is better than this bishop. And everything is anchored. This h5 move makes the king side weaker, but also this pawn and this pawn could be counterplay for black if it ever gets to a rook and pawn endgame, and it can win a3. So now bishop d5 is a mistake because of coordination. So here g4, take, and the idea is now your queen has to move to protect the bishop, and I can hit queen d3, hitting this and threatening queen h7 checkmate. Now it actually gets misplayed a little bit. And it's not something crazy time pressure. Now the win is kind of complicated. You're supposed to go queen h7 check, king f8, knight takes e6, and then rook d3 back here. And now here, if you win the g7 pawn, and the king is in the middle, you're gonna win everything. Also, he's in time pressure, so this would be very, very, I think, easier for white to win. Okay, now there's a variation here. Queen f7, king g2, threatening rook f3. You don't want to go queen check, because then he can kind of wiggle out like this. But king g2 is killer, because now rook f3 should just win the queen. And yeah, then it's a mistake. Okay, so that would have been the win here. Instead, we go ahead. So rook f3, king e7. This is still winning. And then oh, sorry, this is a fantasy variation. So bishop e6. Okay, so he plays c4. And then here, black still kind of has this idea. Queen h7 and try to swing the rook. But after rook here and queen f4, black is actually kind of surviving. And this is always something that you want to keep in mind. If you're being attacked, try to trade the queens. It will make things easier. And here, black actually basically regains at least like counterplay. And the way to keep it going is to go rook f8, queen f6, queen f4, and attack on this f-file. That's what black wants to do. But after b6, rook d6, I get a new weakness. And now white can officially be up material. Now here, queen f5 check immediately was better, but okay, so what is the big difference here? So f3, okay, I guess you don't trade queens. Yeah, well, I'm very surprised he didn't trade queens here, because he actually ends up trading queens later, and this would have been a better version. But alright, so we skip ahead. Eventually he does trade queens. And here, the next transition is really, really key. Or like, super... Okay, so here, rook g2 is a mistake. The reason that rook g2 is a mistake is you need to defend actively here. And the way to do that is you're going to keep checking this king. Let's say he finally comes in, he attacks your rook and stops the checks. Now you can go rook here, and you attack this pawn. That is how you don't let white get any grounds to just push his pawns. When you go rook g2, back here, now white can start pushing because you don't have enough time to stop everything. So he pushes, he gets it going, and then f6 is killer. So yeah, a really, really minute mistake after doing a really good job of surviving. But Sindarov does get the win in round 5. So that's this game. Okay, so here we have Keymer versus Arvind C. It starts off in English, and then it flows into a QGD. just normal, just QGD with knight d7. Bishop f4. And then here it starts getting crazy. So when they go g5, basically they're trying to be more aggressive, and they're trying to get the bishop pair. If they can get the bishop pair, then they can say, okay, at some point I'm going to open up the position, and I can play. Also space, a huge space advantage. Alright, so now it starts getting pretty crazy, and even though white is up a pawn, black has bishops, and he has, I guess, a ready-made kingside attack. So take. Alright, so we have two bishops. And then somewhere over here is when it gets kind of nuts after h5. Okay, so here, a3. So white needs to figure out, okay, where am I going to put my king? Or, like, what am I going to do? Probably this h3 break. The knight on f4 makes a lot of sense. And then if he can castle at some point, I think that would be nice. But f4 is what he goes for. Now, if he takes... There's no 1%. I think there's no 1% in this. On Elite Chess? That's weird. Yeah, f4 is take on f3 not a move? Am I tripping here? But okay, he goes h5. I wonder what that is. Okay, anyway, so h5, and then here knight f3 is the key. And basically when you put your knight on g5, it's gonna be there for life. Okay, so bishop takes e3. He's kind of opened up the position, which makes sense from the black side. And then the key here is after rook takes, you take the bishop. If you take on g5 and they go f4, this is actually much better for black. Super, super dangerous for white. Queen h4, bishop f5, and then these pawns and this and everything. The coordination, it gets messed up. But if I take on e3, now it's actually very easy for white to play. I have a protected passed pawn. My king is safe. I can actually go king f2. And then this knight is better than this bishop. I always like knight versus bishop endgames because the knight can do whatever it wants. Okay, here, and then actually... The computer wants he wants to take on h3 because it likes this game a little bit better, this endgame better, like this. But okay, anyway, this is still pretty difficult. And after king g3, which is a really nice way to win, you can't take this knight because there's queen h8 check, king d7, and then there's rook d6, and I take here, take the rook, and if king e7, there's queen g7 and rook f8 mate. So after king g3, you can't really run away because I could take on f5, king here, and then rook takes c6 is the killer. That's what I remember. If bishop takes c6, knight e6, and you win the queen, and these pawns are too much. Black or white is going to win. So, kind of the big thing here was just the open king, and though you have the two bishops, the holes in the king side or the king side are what make it very difficult. So, that's it for this round. Alright, so we're not going to go too much time through this Giri Pragg game. It does start out a Sozin, which is kind of cool, but this is also why I stopped playing the Sozin at the highest level. It just becomes hard to win. So, yeah, there's a lot of time, there's going to be pressure on g7. You can't take it. If you take it now, yeah, rook g8 and all this is just going to be, it's probably no bueno. So you have to wait. If they castle, you always have some bishop h6 ideas. The saddest part is this never even wins, too. Yeah, you just go here, and you hope at some point you can sacrifice on one of these squares. That's my Sozin days. Okay, so they play, just moving. Bishop g5, I think, was a nice move here. If you take here, I think my arrows are all over. This diagonal is gonna be kind of dangerous. You're just gonna always have to worry about g2. If you go rook takes, this pawn is going to be a target. Also, the bishop can take. So bishop g5 makes sense. If take here, then knight takes. And you can't take here because I take on e7. And now I threaten to take and double the pawns. So that's why the tension is good. Rook here, just building tension. And then it kind of just peters out. At some point, they're like, alright, you know what? A draw is cool here. So take, f6 is kind of a dangerous move. I would have definitely taken on g7. Because then this king is always is always suspect, is the best way to put it. But alright, so they go with this, and neither of them are, okay, queen not even threatening mate is the funny part, because queen g1. But, yeah, so at some point they just trade off, and they attack the weakness, and it's just a draw. So, that is Pragg versus Anish. Okay, so here we have Hans versus Nodirbek. We get a classic Petrov defense, something that we see all the time at the highest level, especially with these e4, e5 guys. And this game gets kind of interesting. I'm not gonna lie. This is probably all prep. It's now, well, yeah. Well, it's definitely prep for Nodirbek because he has way more time than he started with. And it becomes this dryish endgame, but it really spices up all of a sudden. And I'll show you guys somewhere over here. So this. So rook e2, bishop c1. Okay, so it looks like, okay, he wants to draw, but then he goes a3. And what the idea is bishop e1 check. Okay, any square this way, and white actually wins. So here, bishop f5 check, king c6, knight a7 check, king b6, and then knight c8 check, and now I have some rook. Then I can take the knight. Yeah, they're actually playing with fire here. So here, so you have to go king f6. Um, if you go king d8, just knight d6, and then we have the fork and we have the knight. So king f6, knight d6, knight c6, and now knight e8 check is almost mate, out of nowhere. So here, white goes h4. So h4, he's starting knight e8 mate, or forcing black to sack the rook. And is there any way to stop this? And the answer is no. Like knight e7, for example, I'm trying to cut off the connection. g4, and then I'm losing the piece. So here, the only way to stop it is actually you just go deeper in it. You go bishop takes a3. And now, okay, if we're going to lose the exchange, at least I have these two pawns for it, and it's opposite color bishops, which makes it easy to draw. And now here, what Nodirbek does a really good job of is he anchors all his pieces down. That way nothing is hanging and everything's okay. So bishop check, knight g4, and then another thing he does really well, okay, is definitely repeat to offer the draw, but he starts attacking and defending actively. So he takes one pawn, he gets the next pawn, and all you have to do is defend one move of danger, and then here, and you can't take this because bishop f2 check. So here, bishop check, and after take. I'm the one playing for the win, so I think it's an easy draw. King g5, and we have a draw, just because it's too many pawns. So basically, I can give up these 4 pieces for this bishop, and it's a draw. It can give up these 4 pieces for the bishop, and it's a draw. If anything, black actually has some winning chances if these start going. But okay, knight f5, and then, yeah, there's just a draw. So yeah, it looks like a very dry game. All of a sudden, there's some mate threats, but if too many pawns leave the board, it's going to be a draw. Alright, so now to the next one. Okay, so here we have Jordan van Foreest against Matthias Bluebaum. We have another classic Petrov defense. Matthias plays it a little bit interesting. He tries to not castle and push the h-pawn and get the rook out this way. But actually, either they do this, or the other common maneuver is just g3, king g2. And because the bishop covers the square, he goes for g3, king g2. Like here. And then they're just down to trade. So, okay, what's up with this? Yeah, this would seem like a normal way to go too. It's just like white can move very easily here, very freely. But structurally, like, this should also be fine. But alright, so they just trade off everything. And Matthias is basically saying, I'm just going to sit here. And you just watch this next 20 moves. It's just black sitting, doing nothing and waiting. That's honestly sometimes a good way to draw endgames. Don't try to do something. You'll end up making it worse. So he just moves back and forth. You just got to watch these two weaknesses. Back and forth, back and forth. And here, why can't I take? Okay, if I take it, you take g6. So even here, just back and forth. And then here, it's funny. There's no way in. All the inroads are blocked. And as long as the bishop holds this and the king holds this, I have enough moves where I can always just wait. There's no way in. It's kind of a cool geometric draw, is what I would say. Alright, on to the next one. Okay, so here we have Arjun Erigaisi versus Fedoseev. And let me preface by saying Arjun went full serial killer this game. And I think it's becoming a little dangerous for him. There's a couple of games where he tries too hard to win, and he gets a little in over his head. So okay, so this I'm guessing is all theory. We're just gonna go ahead and then come to here. And right now Arjun is doing great in the opening. Has a great advantage. It's just I think up a pawn and a protected pass pawn. So what is he supposed to do? Queen e3 and knight c3 is a little bit better. But here, yeah, I think he should just try to castle. Can you not just go bishop e2 to queen g6, and then he gets a pawn back? So okay, this would be I guess the normal way to go. So you have to go rook d1, f3, And then already here, I'm getting really worried. So the question, I guess, becomes, was it worth getting the pawn? So queen e3, knight b4, queen d2. And somehow here, this is a lot safer. So the way he played is like this, queen d2. Oh, knight c5, knight c3. You can't really castle. It's tough. I mean, b4 is definitely a scary move to make. Though apparently this works. Oh my god, do you get it? Okay, I'll give up anything to castle at this point. Oh, he did it. So that's how you do it. So the problem is this knight. The knight and the queen hit e4 and g2. If you can get rid of this knight just long enough, because actually, where does his knight go is another good question. Knight a6, a3, and his knight is broken. So after this, and bishop d3, we get to castle, and then we have our advantage. Even if I lose this pawn is worth a pawn and a half. So that's how he could have gotten out. Of course, not easy to see. I tell my students looking at some of these games is inspirational, because you realize like these guys make mistakes too. It's like chess is not easy. Okay, and then here's where he gets caught in the middle. So here he goes, okay, after this, I mean, Fedoseev, it says equal, but I'll tell you, like, if I would much rather be black here. There's so many ways in, and Arjun just goes. I mean, he went full psycho is what I kind of meant. Never go full psycho. So here, queen e3, and then the problem is knight f4, and then you get smushed to death. To this, and then here, there's basically, I would say, no compensation. This, rook here, and then just a couple more moves, and then black wins. So yeah, I mean, he tries to get this huge advantage, and the opening he does, but you got to be careful because if you don't navigate it, it can definitely backfire. So, okay, on to the last game. Okay, so here we got Tai Nguyen versus world champion Gukesh. So he goes with starts with the Queen's Indian, but these generally turn to Slavs. Though he gets a fast c5, so it turns into, yeah, it just turns into some QGD, where we're both kind of just sitting with double fianchetto. Basically nothing going on. They go c5. This is one of those positions. Whenever you get this square, you just kind of close your eyes and you make some moves back here and wait for everything to capture. So okay, so he's waiting. I mean, putting the queen in the line of this seems a little suspect, but okay, so we get some clarity. So black double takes and he's playing against these. I think you would want this pawn here if you're gonna do it. This makes this is a little bit weaker, but he can break. Okay, so that's the key. So break, and the break really is just kind of a draw. We just trade off opposite bishops. Nothing crazy going on, but this pawn is, I guess, slightly weak. You know, that's enough. All right, so we shuffle. You know, we got some weaknesses, and then here's when it starts getting a little bit interesting. So here. And we take the rook. So here, pieces are coming off, but now this king is a little unsafe. And that's all it takes. We're going to see. Now here, you are down in exchange. So take here, take, and rook c3. Okay, so here, rook e7 is the key. So white sacks in exchange to get a weak king. Or sorry, black sacks in exchange to weaken white's king. And the reason that rook e7 is better is it comes back, and now you can protect everything. Whereas when you go rook c3, black gets to move everything with tempo, and everything comes forward, and now the king is exposed. And then, okay, you get this pawn, but now this king, there's a lot of issues, and that was kind of the big kind of idea here. So this, and he has to sack the rook. If he tries to keep it, this here and these checks lead to mate. So you gotta sack the rook, and then here, this is just a dream for Gukesh. You're up a pawn, his king is weak, these pawns are weak. Eventually, you're just going to go pick it and get everything. Knight c4, okay, trading off because you know the endgame is winning. Okay, attacking weakness. Okay, so here, yeah, very interesting. When white is trying to get activity, so he's trying to push and sacrifice pawns, get pawns off the board. And Gukesh just takes it, which is, I guess, the best way to deal with this here. To take, and then eventually, you're going to get these pawns. If rook check, you have f6. Let's say he goes here. And the killer is f4, and then everything is going to come in. There's mates, there's pawns promoting, and he kind of breaks through here. So yeah, king safety and this big trying to sack the big idea of sacking the exchange is kind of what got Gukesh this win here. So yeah, bishop e1, attacking the weakness, sacking the exchange, but getting a lot of counterplay for it, and that's how he won this game.